hearing that, I'd be thinking, right, well, why do we want to stay here when we could be getting opportunities at another top club? Why should we keep our talents at Manchester United when maybe our career would be better suited somewhere else? And I think this is a conversation that players and parents will be having as we speak.
Jay here of Stretford Paddock. This is Academy Review. Joining me as always is Mr. Academy Scoop himself, Finn. How we doing, bro?
Yeah, I feel like I haven't quite recovered from yesterday, well, at the time of filming's draw to Bournemouth.
That 8-goal thriller.
8-goal thriller.
Yeah.
Obviously not the result we wanted, but we're here to talk about the Academy. There's a bit of a mixed bag in terms of some positives and negatives. Obviously a lot of controversy around Ruben Amorim at the moment.
This is, believe it or not, right, this is the angriest I've ever seen Finn. Right, Finn is he's a chill guy, and he's relaxed, he's friendly, he's always quite happy, but he was raging. Honestly, he was smashing the gaff up early. We've had to replace a few of the cameras because he was absolutely livid on some of the things that have been going on.
Did a Ruben Amorim.
He did a Ruben Amorim. Yeah, he put his fits through the telly, so we've had to replace a lot of the equipment.
It happens.
It does happen. It's been a testing time, hasn't it, with what's been going on at Manchester United. And I saw you on socials, you covering it, and I wanted to have a chat with you about it. We will talk a little bit about some of the football that's been played as well. But in terms of the manager's comments about the academy, so anyone who's not heard them, and I can't believe there's anyone watching this video that hasn't, the manager's been asked about Kobbie Mainoo. I think it was after the West Ham game, was it? Or maybe, sorry, before the Bournemouth game, the embargo bit before the Bournemouth game. So these are the later quotes that came out. And he sort of spoke more widely about the academy and about players not playing in the academy and not trusting certain players. And yeah, I mean, I'll let you sort of explain what he said and pick up on it, because it was, for me, it just seemed a little bit odd, because I don't really think it helped anyone, including the manager or the players he was referencing.
I can't think of one party that benefits from the comments that he made. So he kind of dug out Harry Amas and Chido Obi as examples. He said Amas is now struggling in the Championship. Chido is not always a starter for the under-21s. All these guys played when a lot of people were saying sack the manager, so you can see that I'm not worried. He's also talked a lot about Kobbie Mainoo and basically said, you lot think that I should be playing him. I don't see it that way. Yeah. I'm going to stick to my guns, and I'm going to do what I think's best for the team. And he's showing a lot of kind of stubbornness and a lot of recklessness in his comments that I don't think he realises the gravity of what he's saying sometimes.
I agree completely with what you said there. Also, Toby Collier, I think, caught a few strays.
Yeah, it's so weird. I think he said months ago, he said, I'll never throw the players under the bus. I'll always be the first one to take responsibility when things aren't going right. That's on me. And yet, as soon as people apply a bit of pressure on him and ask the important questions, he's digging out teenagers and academy players. It's bizarre.
The antithesis of what Manchester United are about. We're a club that, when people talk about United DNA, and I've been watching United for a long time, a little bit longer than you. I know we're a similar age.
A little bit, yeah.
But the one constant at United, going back to when Sir Matt Busby took over in the 40s to up until Ruben Amorim arrived, you could argue, has been our connection with the academy. That is what United DNA is. It's not necessarily the style, although we do like wingers and stuff like that. It is, we have always entrusted our academy. We've always had a connection with our academy. We've got this record going back to the 1930s where we've always had a player who's come through the academy in the first team matchday squad. That is what United DNA is to me, and it is an important part of this club. And with one of the few clubs in the history of football that has won a load of trophies with a big chunk of our team being from the academy. We did that with the class of 92, obviously, when we lifted the treble. And I know you've had other teams, Celtic in the 60s or whatever, but in sort of modern day Premier League era, it's unheard of. And yet we did that. And now you look at these comments and you kind of get the impression that Ruben Amorim just doesn't quite understand that.
I don't think he gets it. No. I really don't think he gets it. And it's annoying, because earlier in his tenure, I was saying I think he does get the club better than previous conversations. Yeah, I felt like it seemed like he'd identified the right issues. It seemed like he was taking things in the right direction. But it's become clear, both through his treatment of academy players in terms of giving them minutes, well, not giving them minutes, and the way he talks in the media about the young players and about kind of his reluctance to use the academy players. He doesn't get it.
No,
it was. I think the best example of this was against Wolves. Shea Lacey's there on the bench. We've had stories coming out for months that Amorim's been talking to him in training sessions, taking a liking to him, ready to give him an opportunity, and he even said in press conferences, yeah, Lacey's ready to play. And then you bring on someone like Joshua Zirkzee with 5-10 minutes to go, you're 4-1 up, you opt for a player who doesn't have a clear future at this club. It looks like he might be leaving to Roma in January. I just think it's cowardly, to be honest. It's so backwards, and it's not what Manchester United represents at all. When you've got someone who you could... like, putting on Shea Lacey in that moment shows to players in the younger age groups, look, there's a pathway here, there's an opportunity here, even if it's just token minutes. He may have come on and not really done anything, but it's about what it represents and about what it means to the club, and it kind of shows respect to the academy and shows respect to what is probably the most important part of the club, and the most important part of our history, like you've just said. It's the mantra of the club: youth, courage, success, for a reason.
That's a joke in itself, that we've suddenly made this the mantra of the club, and yet we don't seem to be applying any of those traits to the club in its current form. I mean, I tried to be sympathetic towards Ruben Amorim, just as a default setting. For me, it's to back the manager and support him, especially a manager who will agree inherited a bit of a bin fire, and he's trying to change everything at the club and change the culture and get the squad that he wants and sort of stamp his authority in it. I get all that. I just can't for the life of me see the positives from saying these things. Yeah. And I don't think it's fair if you're someone like Harry Hamas and you're having your brekkie, just minding your own business, to see all of a sudden you're trending on social media because the manager's maybe he's had a dig at it, maybe not. There's a little bit of debate going on there. The way he worded it, was he just saying that he's at a club that's struggling rather than the player struggling? Regardless, it's not great. Cheeto, you're probably sat there thinking, hang on a minute, why am I? Toby Collier, who's going through some injuries, he's probably thinking, hang on a minute, what am I getting dragged into this for? It is a little bit odd. And I think the way Ruben Amorim could handle this better, if he was to ever ask me, which he won't, would be, if you want to justify your team selection, if you feel that you're getting unfair criticism for not trusting Kobbie Mainoo more, for not turning to the academy more, for not giving Shea Lacey minutes, which I agree with he should have done, by the way. I said it at the watch along for the Wolves game. The way to do that isn't to bash the youngsters. It isn't to criticise them. It's to praise the players you are picking. So if you say, look, the reason Kobbie Mainoo isn't getting in the team is because I play Casemiro and Bruno. One's won 5 Champions Leagues, one's the captain of this club. They're 2 of the best players on the planet. That's the only reason Kobbie Mainoo is not getting in this team at the minute. Not that he's a bad player, but he's got 2 amazing players in front of him. People could go, all right. Yeah. If you go, look, there's a reason that Shea Lacey isn't getting off the bench at the minute, it's because you've got Brian Mbeumo, who's scored 20 Premier League goals last season and was a big signing for us this season, and you've got Mateus Cunha, who scored 16 Premier League goals last season, was another big signing for us. You've got Mason Mount, who we spent 45 million quid on, and he's having a fantastic season, and you've got Benjamin Sesko. I know he's a different position, but he's another player who's in that mix. That makes sense. People go, okay, yeah, you can say Shea Lacey is an amazing player. He's going to get minutes and play lots of times for Manchester United. Just at the minute, you have got some real quality in front of you. People will go, okay. But when you start going, and I know he hasn't overtly criticised Shea Lacey, but when you start sort of almost talking down the academy rather than talking up the first team.
He made that comment saying...
It doesn't make sense to me.
He also said, what game was it? Was it against the one before Wolves?
It wasn't West Ham, was it? Was it West Ham before Wolves?
And he said something like, well, who was a more offensive option that I could have brought on?
Yeah, it was.
And he'd said in the press conference before that, Shea Lacey's ready to come on. Kobbie Mainoo was also on the bench. And instead of saying, well, I was really happy with the options that I had on the pitch and, I thought we were continuing to attack well, he said, well, who was there? Who could I have put on? Who was more offensive? And it's like, I think throughout his tenure, he's had this issue of being a little bit too honest and a little bit too transparent in what he says, and it speaks of a naivety that you can't have if you're a Manchester United manager. You have to have a certain level of maturity and an understanding of how to navigate these questions and navigate the kind of public-facing responsibilities to make sure that you're not throwing players under the bus and that you're being positive. There was an interview that Jose Mourinho did in the last week or so, and he's someone that, in fairness, was also criticised during his time at United for not using the academy as much as he could have. But he was talking about Benfica's academy. Obviously, he's managing them now. And he said, there are so many players in this academy set up that I could use. There are so many top players. It's a fantastic setup. Going right down the age groups. I could pick a new player every day and they'd be good enough for the first team. But obviously it's difficult because there are so many strong first teamers, and obviously we have to have some stability in our setup, and we have to have some assurances. And I think he answered the question in a really kind of mature way, and it's the type of thing that I want to hear from Ruben Amorim. But you listen to Ruben Amorim's comments, and if I was an academy player or a parent of an academy player or an agent of an academy player hearing that, I'd be thinking, right, well, why do we want to stay here when we could be getting opportunities at another top club? Why should we keep our talents at Manchester United when maybe our career would be better suited somewhere else? And I think this is a conversation that players and parents will be having as we speak. We've seen the fallout on social media that's happened. Harry Amas, Chido Obi, both made social media posts. Obviously they've been deleted now, but I think that message was clear and received by everyone. We've also seen Kobbie Mainoo's half-brother, Jordan Hames, a bit of a controversial kind of publicity stunt there with the free shirt.
To be honest with you, I understand the frustration of the academy players. I don't think they should have posted on social media personally. I think someone should have had a word with him and said, look, that's not going to serve anyone any good, including yourselves. I understand the problems, but I don't think they should have done that personally. I don't think he should have said his comments in the first place, but I don't think posting on social media as a reaction was warranted or helps them. And I think it can start to build a narrative that's unfair, especially, and I only say Harry Amas because we've spent a little bit of time with him on tour, someone who's a mature, level-headed lad. It can come across badly. The Kobbie Mainoo's brother one, I think he's just done his brother an absolute disservice. I think Jordan Hames Mainoo, I think he's added the Mainoo on now since Kobbie made his England debut. I don't think he's done himself or his brother any favours. He might have done himself.
I would be surprised I'd be very surprised if Mainoo knew much about.
And that's the sad thing as well, because we've had this discussion, and I think Ronaldo was saying on the Paddock podcast, oh well, Mainoo would have known about it, but you're saying actually they're not that close. He probably doesn't, and it's that whole thing of no one quite knows. So there's still that.
It's not something that Mainoo can really talk about. It's not something that he can come out and clarify very well.
And I've said this a lot on the channel in the last 24 hours, but it needs saying again. Mainoo had a very good cameo, I thought, against Bournemouth. You could see the qualities there. He got a great reception from the fans when he was warming up and when he came onto the pitch. It was good to see from him. And instead of talking about his good performance, his good reception, we're talking about some kid who used to be on Love Island who's wearing T-shirts that he's flogging.
Posting it for a social media picture, wasn't it?
Which is just nonsensical, and we shouldn't be at this place. And I think Jordan, Kobbie Mainoo's brother, or his half-brother, however you want to term it, he needs to take a look at himself, and that's just proper selfish and uncalled for. I don't think it's helpful at all. One thing that really worried me in all this, I mean, it worried me that the manager would come out of this, and I thought it was an insane thing for him to say. And you might disagree, mate, and you might go, Jay, you're overcooking it, or Finn, you're overcooking it, it wasn't that deep. There are lots and lots of people that have construed it as being messy and ludicrous. So regardless of whether it is or not, the narrative or the discussion has now started out of nowhere that didn't need to happen. One thing that worried me, we have heard it constantly. Me and you have spoken about this player probably more than we've spoken about anyone else. That is JJ Gabriel. There is a real feeling at Manchester United that he is genuinely special, that he is genuinely generational. I know we throw that word around a lot, but this is someone who potentially could be one of the greatest players this club's ever had. And I don't say that lightly as someone who's seen a lot of great players play for Manchester United. When these comments came out, JJ Gabriel's dad on his social media posted a picture of the sort of, I think it's the covering eyes monkey emoji. And then I think he's deleted it since. How concerned are you that when you talk about, or you spoke about parents being wary of, is this the club for me, that you've got a talent like JJ Gabriel and his dad seeing these comments and obviously reacting to them?
Well, I'm not surprised at all that that's happening, because as a parent, you want the best for your son, you want the best for his career. And at the end of the day, if there are questions around that pathway and questions around the competency of the club and the future opportunities, you're going to start to question whether you want to stick around. And it is concerning. I think JJ Gabriel, given the talent that we associate him with, some people are already saying he's the best academy player United have ever produced. I think in my time watching the academy in the last probably 5, 6, 7 years, certainly the best player I've seen at his age, and probably the best player at the level he's playing.
Okay.
So he's going to be the one that's talked about the most, because the prospect of losing that kind of talent is not something United should be faced with. And it's something that United haven't, it's kind of an unfamiliar problem. We've never really worried too much about losing our top talents. It's something we've always been able to do well, is keep our top talents, because that pathway's always been there. So he's the main one, and I think it's a very real concern. We need to be thinking about, are we doing enough? Are we going in the right direction as a club to make sure that we can keep someone like JJ Gabriel? Because I don't think he'll hesitate if the opportunity comes to move to a Barcelona or move to a Real Madrid. And I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm not saying that's set in stone or nailed on. Some people are already acting like he's got one foot out the door. I don't think that's necessarily the case. But I think it will be the case if we don't sort out some of these issues and adapt the way that we're approaching the academy. Because I think it's been disappointing from top to bottom. I think even Ineos, who seemed to when they came in, I think one of the things they talked about was making sure that United have a state of the art academy set up and make sure that that's one of the real kind of focuses of the club. We haven't really seen that from them. All we've seen actually is high profile departures from people like Nick Cox and Luke Fedorenko, the head of recruitment for United. Adam Lawrence left as under 18 coach, and you can argue that these people are just moving on. It's just a natural kind of career progression for them, and that may be the case. But at the end of the day, when people are starting to kind of leave the project and starting to show that might not be as stable and as sure as it once seemed, I think there are some real question marks that start to be asked.
I agree with you completely, but allow me to do my Carl Anker impression, where I'm going to take my hat off of being a massive advocate for the academy and a big United fan and someone who loves doing these podcasts with you, and put on another hat of like, let's just
devil's advocate
and be a bit more old school and say, okay, I get it, but should the dad of a 15-year-old, albeit how talented that 15-year-old, be influencing anything or be even commenting on anything, even if it's cryptically, should young players who are in the academy be posting on social media in reaction to the manager's comments, should the manager not be entitled to voice his opinions on youngsters? Is there an argument that this is getting blown out of proportion and some of the reaction has been worse than what Amorim said? Do you think there is any case for that, if you allow me to play devil's advocate?
Yeah, of course, and I think it's a question worth asking. It's obviously a two-sided thing.
Yeah.
I do think that there needs to be more off-the-pitch management and guidance in terms of making sure that when there is this kind of controversy and fallout, that players are trained not to take to social media and kind of to stay mature and stay composed and deal with it in a professional way. I think that's important, because at the end of the day, it doesn't reflect well on the players either. No. I think I understand why they're taking their frustrations out in the way they did, especially when they're kind of being left in a defenceless state. If the manager's going after them almost unprovoked, it's pretty hard to kind of just keep that to yourself and keep that as an internal matter. So I understand why they did what they did, but you're right in saying, they shouldn't be taken to social media, nor should a player's parent or representative. These things should be kept as internal matters, and if there are problems that they're facing, they need to take that to the relevant people within the club and have those conversations inside the club, and not be public facing when they have those conversations.
I agree. Listen, I've always said, if one of my kids was fortunate enough to play for Manchester United, I probably couldn't do this job. I couldn't sit here and criticise one of their teammates on a podcast, because then it becomes a story, it becomes a narrative. It's like, so-and-so's dad. Yeah. So I'd probably have to take a step back, which is fine, because I'd have a kid playing at United or whatever. But I think my responsibility, the sort of point I'm trying to labour would be to making sure their career was looked after and I didn't affect it in an adverse way, in any way, shape or form. And I feel that's maybe not what we're seeing from certain family members. I understand it. I actually sympathise when you had Harry Maguire's family, I think it was, pushing back on social media when he was getting criticised. I get it. It's someone you love.
It's natural human nature. You want to look out for someone. Yeah.
And I think I'd probably do the same if one of my siblings or kid was getting trolled. However, when it's the manager and it's your kid who's at the academy, or when it's your brother that's in and out of the first team, or if you're a youngster, I think sometimes you've got to have these conversations on a one-to-one basis, or off camera, or off social media. You've just got to handle it a little bit differently.
Yeah.
Because the main concern should always be making sure your career and your success is sort of as smooth as possible.
Yeah. But to be fair, I think that's a little bit. I think you're absolutely right, but it is also a responsibility of the club to make sure that correct guidance is in place and those
you make a good point about
happening.
The guidance thing, and I think it took Manchester United years to do some of the most basic and obvious things when it came to player management and handling players. And I'm not talking about picking a team or putting an arm around the shoulder when they've had a bad game. I mean, things like logistically, when a new player signs, does he know where to get his laundry done? Does he know where to live? Does he have any friends? Does he have, is someone looking out for him? Is someone telling him where to go shopping? We had Wilfred Zaha, who famously used to go from training back down to London because he just was left to his own devices and he was bored to tears. You should be looking after your players. You should be looking after everything about them. We've spoken. I think you've watched More Than a Match podcast with Damani and Hopper. Damani's spoken about some of the advice he used to get about money and stuff at the club when he was at the club. There needs to be guidance and help. There needs to be some sort of protection. Yeah. And I think that's something the club needs to move forward with and be better at. Yeah. So I agree. I also don't think it's helpful. And I think one person who does need guidance as well is the manager, and someone needs to have a word with him.
Someone does need to pull him up and say, why are you making these comments? Because no one benefits.
No.
Absolutely no one benefits. He doesn't gain anything from saying that. It just reflects poorly on him.
Yeah.
It reflects poorly on the players that he's digging out. It's naive on so many levels.
I think naive is probably the kindest way I could put it. Yeah. Is naive. And I think, personally, Amorim got annoyed. I think he had a little bit of ag to him. And I think because of that, he's reacted in a way that's probably not beneficial to anyone.
But you can't be reactive in this position.
I know for a fact, right? People in the comments will be like, "Oh, Jay Finn, it's not that deep." But whenever a manager, things don't work out for him, there's loads and loads of different reasons at United. It's not just one thing. And I think causing this drama with the academy isn't going to help you. No. And if he isn't successful, Ruben Amorim, if he ends up getting sacked within the next year or so, we will look back at this as being one of the moments that led to that. Not the only moment, not that was it, he was gone, but that'll be one of the things that people look at and go, he never understood the academy. Look at the comments he made that time. Yeah. Look at all the drama.
And I think as soon as you start to kind of lose the battle against the media, when they start to ask difficult questions and start to apply pressure, when you begin to lose your composure and say things that you wouldn't have said in hindsight, I think it's a bit of a slippery slope sometimes. So
I've seen it. You couldn't be more right. You've seen it with every single manager, pretty much post Fergie. Maybe, even Ollie had a little bit of needle with the media towards the end, especially with the signings he was making, and the questions about the agents and all that sort of stuff. Really, you could see that annoyed him. But you saw it with everyone. So Ten Hag, where he was arguing with the one with Ian Ladyman in particular, where he was like listing the things that had gone wrong, and Ian Ladyman listed like 10 things that were going wrong. You saw it with Jose, where he was just, doing all sorts of bizarre things, refusing to acknowledge goals we conceded actually counted, and just looking like he just climbed out of a skip, just looking terrible, and just saying that United were never going to win the Champions League anyway, so does it matter? Just, I've won 3 titles, respect me. Louis van Gaal, the mince pies are at the back and all that. Yeah. It's happened to almost every manager, if not every manager's post-Alex Ferguson, and it saddens me that it looks like it's kind of happening for Ruben Amorim at the minute, because the one huge positive he's always had since he arrived at the club is his handling of the media has been quite good. Yeah, I think he's come across as charismatic. He's been friendly. The media, we spoke to a lot of journalists. You've been there yourself, where everyone sort of warms to him and likes engaging with him. And I think he's losing a little bit of that. So there was
that weird incident. I think Carl Anker was asking him questions about Kobe Mainoo and about the academy and stuff like that. Obviously friend of the channel, and I think he's asking the right questions and applying pressure, in the right way. And he asked Amorim, you keep saying I don't know to these questions, and then he started saying, when have I said I don't know? Yeah. I never said I don't know. Yeah. You go back and you clip about 7 or 8 times in that press conference alone that he said I don't know, and he's starting to lose a bit of that composure and starting to kind of lose his self-awareness.
I am massively biased because I love Carl Anker, but Carl's not that guy. He's not someone who's trying to cause drama. He's not after a soundbite or a bit of clickbait of trying to rattle the manager. He's not that genuinely kind of not. Anyone who's ever watched him on this channel or seen him on Talk of the Devils or read his articles know he is and I say this with all respect, and I'm sure he'll agree with me, he's a bit of a footballing geek who just likes to discuss tactics and things like that with the manager, and he's got a big fondness for Kobe Mainoo, obviously, and other players as well. And it was a reasonable question, and I think he got put on the spot then, was like, well, when have I said it? And Carl just sort of left it, and I think the press officer sort of jumps in as well.
Just said, should we move on?
Yeah, it doesn't come across well. I don't want to see this. I want to see the manager. No, you don't have to get on with all the journalists. I'm not saying you do. Fergie didn't get on with any of them. But, no one cared because we kept winning football matches. I just don't want to see this sort of drama every time we have a press conference now, and it feels like we're getting to that stage, and it is slightly worrying. Before we go on, sorry.
So I was just going to say,
please.
When you were playing devil's advocate, your second point you made was, is this getting blown out of proportion? And I just wanted to talk about that because I think, I'm not saying you think it's getting blown out of proportion. No,
but I asked the question, so it's reasonable for you to answer it.
Some fans do, and I think if you think that this whole thing about the academy and the kind of negligence of the youth setup is being blown out of proportion, then I don't think you understand the importance of the academy to the club and why the club has such a rich history and why we have this close affinity with our youth setup. I think it is the building block of all the success that we've had decades gone by, and I think, you know, if you think that it's getting blown out of proportion, then you don't understand what Manchester United is as a club. And I think that's clear in Ruben Amorim's comments. And I think if you don't understand the gravity of the comments that he's making, there are parents having those conversations right now and agents having those conversations right now about the future of the players at the club. And United could miss out on players that could be important to the club for a decade.
You've got to be so careful, right? I couldn't agree again more with you, because United now, right, we've not won a title for 12 years. And let's be real, it's going to be 13. We're not going to win the title this year. There's a lot of kids growing up who ain't United fans or who haven't seen United win loads of trophies. It might not even be, you know, remotely affiliated with the club. So they're not necessarily going to want to play for Manchester United because they're desperate to play for Manchester United. There might even be parents who are similar. They might not be United fans. They might not be fussed whether their kids at United or City or Liverpool, whatever. It'll just be purely based on which is the best academy for my kid to be at. You can't just rely on players, whether it's parents or kids, wanting to play for Manchester United because that's their dream.
I think we've relied on that for a long time.
And I think that's fading away a little bit.
You have to wonder how long left have we got of that?
I had I think it was this time last year, I went for something sweet with a load of my mates who are all big Reds, and they were all sharing stories about how some of their kids weren't United fans, despite the fact they're all, and I'm fortunate in that I had my 3 kids once. The eldest not really interested in football anymore, but the 2 youngest are big United fans. But I have pulled out all the stops. I mean, they've been down to training ground and all sorts and been to loads of games, and it's like it's been a tough one at times, but they are Reds. But you can't always expect that or rely on that. And also, even if parents are United fans, push comes to shove, if they think the academy's not the best for their kid, they might go, well, no, I'm not going to keep my kid there because I've got to do what's best for their career. Yeah. And that might not be being at this academy. Yeah,
it's also worth saying that with the Brexit rules currently, you've got the most competitive kind of 15 to 18-year-old market in academy clubs in England that there's ever been, because there's so much more competition to find these young players internally rather than looking abroad. Like clubs like City and Chelsea did it really, really well for a number of years when Brexit rules weren't in place. Yeah. So that market is now more competitive than ever, and top 6 clubs are more willing to kind of roll the red carpet out for these top players to give them a pathway and give them opportunities. So if we're not willing to do that, then we are going to lose top players. I think about, you talked about the kind of age thing there. JJ Gabriel as an example, was born in 2010.
Jesus Christ.
He was 3 or 4 last time United won a league title.
3, 2013.
Yeah. I was 9.
Oh, Jesus, you know what, I hate you, Finn. You know what, right? I'll tell you what. I was feeling old when you started talking about JJ Gabriel, then you remind me how young you are. Before I let you go, there was a game you wanted to talk about. Yeah. And it was a win.
It was a win.
Yes.
Yeah. It was away to Stoke, United's under-18s, playing on the weekend on Saturday.
Brilliant.
It was a fairly kind of run-of-the-mill win, to be honest. A nice kind of old-fashioned one, but with a bit of excitement at the end, a bit of Fergie time glory. So yeah, it was a fairly flat first half. Few opportunities on both sides, but nothing major. Against Stoke, they're always a really kind of physical side. They make it difficult, so it wasn't going to be the most kind of free-flowing football. And United were coming off a bit of confidence, winning against Peterborough in the FA Youth Cup. So we've picked up form again. Obviously had that 7-0 win against Liverpool and then 3-0 against Newcastle. So we're in a nice vein of form at the moment. Jay McAvoy was one of the kind of standouts in the first half. Irish eligible midfielder who's come into the fold this season as a first-year scholar. He's really impressed me in some of his performances. He had a couple of big opportunities in the first half, one blocked and one saved, and United started to kind of grow into the game. And in stoppage time, Rafe McCormack was able to find the opener. It was a free kick into kind of a chaotic, packed box. Keeper spilled it, and it fell straight to McCormack's feet from close range, and he was able to bury it. JJ Gabriel, obviously electric throughout this game, as we've come to expect. He didn't end up getting a goal contribution like he usually does, but still a top performance. There was a penalty shout, which for me was a clear penalty. Ref ignored it on JJ Gabriel, where he went down in the box. What can you do? In the second half, I'd say United woke up a little bit, but so did Stoke. There was a kind of increased intensity, a little bit more competitiveness, and they were able to find an equaliser. It was Ogbabor, I hope that's how you pronounce his name, broke through. A bit of a lapse of concentration at the back from United, a bit light in defence, and he was able to dink over Fred Heath from fairly close range. And one player that stood out to me was Duka Nkoto.
Okay.
Another very, very young player at United. He's just 15, playing under 18 games. He got 2 assists and a goal against 2 goals and an assist against Newcastle in that 3-0 win off the bench, so had a real impact. He can play as a winger or a midfielder. In his younger years, I've seen him play as a midfielder, but more recently he's playing on the left or the right wing. Seems to have a lot of tools in his arsenal and be a quick, skilled player. So interesting to see him coming into the fold, because he's still technically an under-16 player, not even signed his scholarship yet. He was involved in that first goal, and he also he seems to have a lot of 1v1 ability, seems to be quite unpredictable, can go both ways, and he was really bright in this second half, so that was good to see. United eventually were looking for this winner, and they found it in the 97th minute through Louis Bradbury. It was Yoel Halafu who ran it down the right wing. He's another player that's come out of the recent scholarship intake that has really impressed me this season. Run it down the right, cut it back to Louis Bradbury, first time finish, 2-1, lovely win. And United go second in the league, 4 points off City. So it's still competitive. There was a point where it looked like City would just kind of run away with it, because United had a run of 5 or 6 games without a win, but we're still in and amongst the action at the top of the table, and Darren Fletcher's side is still kind of keeping it competitive, so it's good to see.
Good to see that. Good to see some performances from the usual suspects, and 1 or 2 players that I've not heard you mention as much. You mentioned there Jay McAvoy. What's his position?
Midfielder. Usually plays as kind of the deepest of the midfielders. It was his assist for JJ Gabriel's first goal against Liverpool in the 7-0 win that really impressed me.
Yeah. Picked
up the ball from the defence. One of Liverpool's players applied a lot of pressure, turned away from it with ease, really smoothly, brought the ball into the midfield, and then slid a perfectly weighted through ball to JJ Gabriel. Just stood out as a real nice bit of quality midfield play. And it seems like he's a player with a lot of kind of composure, a lot of technical quality, gets stuck in defensively. And I'm not surprised, because in the recent years, United have produced so many high quality midfielders. We're really good at producing this kind of slightly deeper lying, defensive minded player that still has a lot of quality on the ball. Players like Jim Thwaites, Jace Fitzgerald, Jacob Devaney all come to mind as being in that kind of similar profile. He seems to fit into that bracket as well, and Rafe McCormack is also similar, and I think both can play as centre backs as well, so there's a lot of kind of adaptability there. But really good to see. And Yoel Halafu as well. I compared him earlier in the season to Nusayr Mazraoui.
Right, okay.
Because I think so. He plays at right back, and I think he's got a lot of similar qualities. He's got that kind of composure, intelligence in terms of decision making, and the ability to hold on to the ball. Not necessarily rapid. You don't see him kind of bomb down the wing like a real kind of explosive fullback or wing back, but keeps things really simple and is able to help that progression on the right side, and has a real impact in the final third. So really like what I've seen from him, and he's already played some under-21s games this season despite being a first-year scholar. So a few younger players emerging, a few newer names from that scholarship crop. Lots of positives.
Good to hear it. We need some positives, don't we, when it comes to Manchester United. It does feel there's been a bit doom and gloomy, and hopefully we can perk ourselves up with some more good results for the academy sides, and hopefully the first team as well. Finn, always a pleasure. Thanks for coming on the channel. He's always going to be on the channel a lot more. You'll have seen him on Watch Alongs podcast. We're going to keep getting Finn on the channel, so make sure you check him out, Academy Scoop. You know where to find me. Don't forget as well, check out a link to the merchandise. That's been Finn. I've been Jay. This has been Academy Review. Thanks for watching.